They just lost everything. 2311, Racing, Michael Jordan's pride and joy, and Front Row Motorsports have officially lost their NASCAR charters. Gone. Ripped away by a court ruling that changed the game overnight. And now, they're going to Dover and Indianapolis not as top-tier cup teams, but as open entries. Let that sink in. These aren't small-time startups. We're talking about Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Noah Gragson, Zane Smith, drivers with playoff dreams, sponsors with millions invested, all now racing without the safety net that every major team in NASCAR depends on. So, how did two fully loaded three-car teams go from being locked-in contenders to begging for a spot on race day? Let me explain. Back in December, everything looked like it was going to work out. 2311 and FRM had filed a lawsuit against NASCAR, arguing the charter agreement was unfair, possibly illegal. They claimed NASCAR was running a monopoly, that it was locking teams into one-sided deals and controlling the sport with an iron fist. But even as they sued, they were allowed to race under the 2025 charter agreement, thanks to a court ruling that granted them a temporary pass. That let both teams buy extra charters from the now-dead Stewart-Haas Racing. And just like that, both expanded to 3 cars. It was bold, risky, but it looked like a power move, until it all collapsed. On June 5th, the U.S. Court of Appeals crushed that safety net. They revoked the team's permission to operate under the charter agreement while their lawsuit played out. That meant 2311 and FRM no longer had a legal claim to race as charter teams. Still, they didn't quit. They went right back to court, asking for a new temporary restraining order, a TRO, that would stop NASCAR from kicking them out while the legal battle continued. Their message was simple: let us race as charters until this fight is settled. The court said no. Why? Because NASCAR promised the field wouldn't fill up. At Dover, only 37 cars are entering. NASCAR allows up to 40. So the judge said, fine, they won't miss the race. That's not real harm. But that's only half the story. Because once you're an open team in NASCAR, everything changes. You lose guaranteed money from the purse. You lose your locked-in starting spot. You risk everything, every single weekend. And this is where it gets even crazier. Both teams, 2311 and FRM, still own the charters they bought from Stewart-Haas. But NASCAR says they never signed the 2025 agreement, so those charters are worthless. It's like buying a house, but then being told the neighborhood doesn't recognize your deed. Now, Michael Jordan's team and Bob Jenkins' team are stuck in limbo. Not quite kicked out, but definitely not welcome. So what's next? Well, their attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, says they're not giving up. He called the ruling disappointing, but not the end. He says the real fight is coming in the form of a new preliminary injunction, one that could force NASCAR to give them back their charters. But that ruling could take weeks. In the meantime, these teams will keep racing, but they're doing it without a net. At Dover, at Indy, they're going toe-to-toe with teams that are protected, paid, and privileged. And the moment more than 40 cars show up, they're in danger of going home. And it gets worse. Some sponsorship contracts are tied directly to charter status. So if a team isn't chartered, a sponsor might walk, a driver might have an exit clause. The financial hit? Huge. We're talking millions lost. Just like that. And let's not forget who we're talking about. 2311 is co-owned by Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. FRM is the underdog operation that's been grinding for years. These aren't rookies. These are real players in the sport. And now they're being forced to play by a different set of rules. But why did they sue NASCAR in the first place? Why would two growing teams risk everything by going to war with the most powerful organization in the sport? Jordan said it best. I did it for the smaller teams too, he said back in October. Everybody should have a chance to be successful. My voice is saying that hasn't been happening. It wasn't just about money. It was about fairness, about standing up to the system. But the system just hit back. And the message is clear. If you don't sign the agreement, you don't get the perks. End of story? Not even close. This isn't just a court ruling. This is NASCAR drawing a line in the sand. Because after years of debate over the charter system, the lawsuits, and the behind-closed-doors negotiations, NASCAR has now made one thing crystal clear. If you go against the system, you stand alone. And now, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports are standing alone. Stripped of charter protection, forced to qualify on time, watching millions in guaranteed purse money vanish into thin air. This isn't a slap on the wrist. It's a message. And the rest of the garage? Oh, they're paying attention. Right now, there are 13 teams that did sign the 2025 charter agreement. They're the chosen ones. They have the protection, the guaranteed spots, the full season funding. NASCAR says those teams are focused on delivering the best racing in the world. In other words, play nice or pay the price. But here's the twist. Despite all this legal fire and drama, 2311 and FRM aren't folding. Not even close. They're still fielding 6 cars across the Cup Series. Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Riley Herbst, Zane Smith, Todd Gilliland, Noah Gragson. These are real drivers with real expectations, and they're being forced to race week after week with zero guarantees. What happens if the field expands to 41 cars at a race? Suddenly, one of these drivers could be sent home just because they weren't chartered. No mechanical failure, no wreck, just out. Because of paperwork. Their lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, made it clear. We made the decision to bring this lawsuit to challenge NASCAR's monopolistic practices and bullying tactics. We are not going to let them push our teams or others out of the sport they love. That doesn't sound like a team backing down. That sounds like a team preparing for a long, ugly war. And let's not forget the charters themselves. Both teams bought one each from Stewart-Haas Racing after SHR shut its doors. These weren't stolen. They were legal purchases. FRM and 2311 spent serious money, millions, to expand. But now, those charters are in limbo, technically owned, but not valid, like a passport with no country willing to honor it. So the big question now is, will they ever get them back? The judge hinted, maybe. If field sizes rise and these teams risk missing races, the court might reconsider. That's the only sliver of hope. Until then, it's survival mode. Meanwhile, NASCAR isn't flinching. Their statement was icy cold. We will defend NASCAR's integrity from this baseless lawsuit that threatens to divide the stakeholders committed to serving race fans. Translation? You're either with us or you're out. And yet, it's not that simple. Because this isn't just about 2311 and FRM. It's about every small or mid-sized team that might be afraid to speak up. If NASCAR wins this legal battle, they can essentially say, sign our charter, accept our rules, or risk being exiled. Jordan said it from the start. Everybody should have a chance to be successful. But under the current system, not everybody does. That's why this moment matters. This isn't just legal drama, it's existential. It's about whether NASCAR is a league of equals, or a club with bouncers at the door. As we look ahead, there are more big questions than answers. What happens if one of the open 2311 or FRM cars misses a race? What happens if the court does grant a preliminary injunction later this season? What happens to the value of NASCAR charters when 2 top teams are running full-time without one? And what happens when the lawsuit goes to trial this December? This fight could reshape NASCAR forever. Either the charter agreement stands firm, or it cracks under pressure. Either NASCAR keeps its grip on the sport, or the courts pry it open. But for now, here's the reality. 2 major teams, 6 drivers, and millions of dollars are now on the outside looking in. Not because they can't compete, but because they dared to challenge the system. So now we ask you, is NASCAR right to enforce its charter rules this way? Or is this a dangerous warning to any team that dares to speak up? Drop your thoughts below, because one way or another, the future of this sport is being decided right now, and everyone's watching.